Hello, it's time for Combat Patrol Carnage. We're continuing with our Helbrute as we hit the paint guide and issue 38. So part 2 of our Helbrute, and yeah, we actually get to paint our model. So we've built him up with the plasma cannon and hammer, so now we're going to add some colour to him. So the paint guide is quite in depth and some nice techniques. It's definitely a work in progress. I reckon there'll be an update in a future issue, but yeah, he's basic enough and good enough to game with at the moment. Into the lore articles then, we look at the War Zone Nephilim, so another double page spread like our previous one of the War Zone Bastille. So a nice look at some of the war zones and the greater conflicts of the 41st millennium. So we also learn about the characters we see in this setting. We learn more about the god-aligned Chaos Space Marine factions, the Emperor's Children, Falcon Sons and Death Guard. We'll learn more about World Eaters when we hit them in the later issues. We also read about the Chaos God Nurgle, and how he brings around his beautiful plagues for all. We cover stratagems in depth, and we have Gauntlet of Pain as a Helbrute has a variety of enemies to try and defeat before he himself is defeated. The sooner he goes down, the more points the enemy wins, but the longer he lasts, the more points he'll earn, and he could end up victorious. We also see the Chaos Gods favouring him, as they have each given him a boon to utilise. And there's even the first sign that we can actually customize missions with a nice little table to add our own variety of enemies. We can make things harder or easier for ourselves if we want to. And that's pretty much it for this issue. So as usual with these second part issues, we get the final frame. So this one includes the lower part of the body and the waist assembly. We got the arm attachments which go onto the side of the body. We've got the different parts for the claw arms, so the basic casing or the Stormbolter casing. We've got our remaining arm, we've got our remaining weapons, and we've got decorative icons for the front of the sarcophagus as well. And finally we get ourselves a base, which is, I believe, 60mm, same size as our Wraith Lord. So yeah, he's going to be a pretty centerpiece model. And as I know the Wraith Lord lies down in the drawers I store my models in, I know he'll be able to fit in there as well. So before we hit the table and shake our paints, don't forget to of course do all the usual. Like this video if you're enjoying the Combat Patrol content, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and drop me a comment down below. Have you chosen a specific Chaos God for your Helbrute to be dedicated to, and how are you showing that on your model through its paint scheme? Personally, I'm not too sure if I'm going to dedicate myself to a god as of yet, but maybe by the time these videos have gone live, I'd have chosen a particular god and I'd have shown you guys how to add this sort of colour highlight to the model. Finally then, Combat Patrol Carnage is proudly sponsored by warbay.shop, your one-stop supply for all your hobby needs. They stock the entire hobby experience, starting you off with models, paints, and then gaming equipment, and ending you up with the awesome artwork, collector's coins, pin badges, and the like to decorate your hobby bag and hobby area with. I need to go back to my hobby room and move around my hobby painting and artworks, as I kind of need to fit a few more up. But yeah, check out Warbay. There's a link, of course, as usual. They have their physical store, and you might be able to grab yourself a hobby project at a bit of a discount. Right then, let's head to the table, we'll shake our paints, and we'll apply these to our Helbrute. So here we are with issue 38, and we'll take a look at our frame first, and then we can get into the issue. So we got our big old 60mm base here, ready for him to be mounted on. So put that to one side. And we got our final frame with our components. So we got all the decorative icons for the front of the chassis. We got these horns with a little chaos icon, these more actual natural horns, these are more warped metal, And we've got these rather large ornate horns there, which are the ones we're told to use. We've got the backs of the fists if you're going for the flamers. We've got the backs of the fists if you're going for the stormbolter option. We've got the actual left fist itself there in 2 parts. We've got the outer casing for the heavy bolter and the las cannon, so they actually do share the same sort of casing, but they just slot in, so be careful if you are gluing this and you want to go different weapon options later on. There are guides out there for how to magnetize this set, and I would have put links in these videos for a nice tutorial I found. Yeah, nice lot of components to finish off our Helbrute. Right. So let's take a look through our issue. So full contents. We have our paint guide for the Helbrute. We look at War Zone Nephilim. We learn about the favour of the Chaos Gods, and we look at Nurgle. Then we learn about stratagems, and we have our latest scenario, Gauntlet of Pain. So before we bring in my completed model ready to paint, let's see how the paint guide is actually utilised. How to paint Helbrute. Follow this guide to paint your new Helbrute miniature. If you've just built it, make sure the glue is fully dry, then gather your paints, set at your painting station in a well-lit area. Read through the guide in full before you begin, and make sure you take regular breaks while you work your way through the steps. So with all these Chaos models, we're base coating it with Abaddon Black 3 coats. Then for the flesh, we're base coating all of the flesh with Squig Orange. So we are going to need a hell of a lot of coats, probably 3 to 4 to get a solid covering over that black. Just take your time and let each coat dry before we move on to the next. After we've finished with the flesh, we're going to start working on our metallics. So we're picking out the weapon details, all of the pistons, cables, etc. on our model. So all these exposed cables here, we've got the vents, and we've got all these little circular pieces, which are the joints in the arms and armour. Then we move on to the actual trim. So Retributor armour, you'll probably need 2 to 3 layers over the black undercoat. Take your time going through all of the black details, gold details even. Yeah, picking out each of the trim as you go. Then after you change your paint water, we can move on to our matte colours. So Wraithbone to pick out all the horns and teeth. We've got quite a few on this guy, especially with the components we've used. So yeah, just take your time going around, picking them out. Check the artwork at the back for reference if you've missed any. Rackoff flesh is used for all of these fleshy tubes. So there's a lot on his back. There's a lot around his sarcophagus and his entirety of his waist, near enough. Like me, it's probably a good idea just to paint the entire tube and then go back in with lead belcher after. Mephisto Red is used for the lenses as well as the demonic eyes. And there's our work in progress so far before we hit it with shades. So it's looking pretty good, but we can add more detail. And we're doing that now by shading. So all of our silver details get shaded with Nuln Oil, as well as the red eye lenses and eyes. There's quite a few. You've got 5 here, the Chaos Star in the center, and the 2 on his helmet. Rackoff flesh then is used to paint all of our bones, horns, and flesh cables. And finally, Reichen flesh shade is used on the gold before Caribou Crimson gets used on the skin. And there's our finished gallery so far. Yeah, he's definitely a work in progress, but he looks kind of cool. Very Khorne looking at the moment. Hopefully we'll be doing a relayer stage, bring the flesh up to a bit more of a brighter looking natural flesh. But I do like the more demonic look it's got at the moment. So we'll wait to see what future magazines have when they come out. Alright, let's bring in a paint desk and we'll actually apply this in action on our model. So here we are with our Helbrute, and he's undercoated black now and ready for the paint stages. So I'm going to do things a little different to the guide. What I'm going to do is we'll go, after we've done the flesh with Squig Orange, we're going to go to Rackoff flesh and do all the fleshy tubes, just so when we come in with the silver, we can work the silver into the gaps in the pipes instead of having to work around the silver painting the pipes with the Rackoff flesh. So as I said, first colour then is Squig Orange, and this is going to be a pretty arduous stage as we need to base coat, well, the entirety of the flesh. And I'm going to go with the large base brush, as we can be quite messy at this stage. As we've got to work it in and around all the different armour panels and the other details which we'll pick out later. So I get some of this on our palette, nice and mixed. I'll brush a bit of a clean. So get some loaded up onto our brush. And we focus on the back because that's where the majority of the exposed flesh is. I'm going to start working this all over the mutated skin. There's quite a lot of it on this model, so just take your time. Working it into all the nooks and crannies. And you're definitely going to want at least 2, most likely 3 layers to get a solid coat. That took quite a while, but I've now got 3 solid coats of Squig Orange, and that is really quite orange. I mean, that might just be the brightness of my light, but wow. It's a lot more orange on camera than it is in real life. It's more fleshy in real life. But wow, yeah. And as you see, I've been rather messy, but it's fine. We'll tidy that up later on. But moving on next, as I said, the guide should tell us to do the silver and gold next, but we're going to skip straight to the Rakoff flesh. So we'll paint all of our fleshy tubes, and then when it comes to the silver, we can just paint those exposed bits of cables with a little bit of the silver, and save having to be neat around that silver later on. So we'll get some of this on the palette prepared. We've got my medium base brush for this, as some of it's small work, some of it's large work, so we can jump to and fro between this and the small layer brush. I've also got fresh water, as there's quite a lot of orange pigment in the water, and it would have most likely tainted the Rakoff flesh. So onto our model then, load up our brush fresh. So we got fleshy tubes going along the top. There's quite a few of them. Some are just plain flesh, metal even. We've got the 2 coming down here, and there's quite a few on the abdomen section as well. Don't worry about getting these areas too badly covered, they'll be painted silver in the next step. Then we skip these, and then there's a trio of pipes around each side, and the same on the other side. We've got the ones going down from the plate to his legs to pick out. One on the top of the hammer here. We've of course got this large one on the back. And we got these small ones coming down either side of the chimneys. Just work your way around. You might need a second layer over the flesh, but once you're done, we can move on to our metallics. There we go, Rakarth flesh is done. So we've got the pipes around the chest, all the ones underneath the abdomen there, between his legs. There's one right up underneath his arm there, as well as one embedded in his arm there. And of course the one around the back and on the top. And there's quite a few on top. Just be careful, there is chains, which I've never actually noticed before, just in between there, and they'll be painted silver as we begin our next step. So we'll grab our lead belcher, give this a good shake. So we've got quite a lot of areas to work on. Again, some of these are small, some of these are large, so we will easily swap between the two, small layer and medium base, just so we can reach all of those areas. So I'll kick things off with the medium base brush, as we've got the majority of the hammer to do and a lot of the pistons on the legs. So now we're ready. We'll start working on the hammer, so just got to be careful around the areas we finished. Now, our aim is to cover the entirety of the hammer head, as well as the hilt down here, the joint here in the elbow, turning around, we got all these pistons in the leg. And again, these joints. On the abdomen, again, we got all these pistons. Got these canister pieces to pick out as well. And then we'll switch over to our small layer brush, as we've got loads of small cables woven into the flesh, and we've got areas we need to be gentle around as well. So just take your time working your way around the model and getting all of these silver areas. And of course, don't forget to do the exposed cables. Okay, with our silver down, our Helbrute is drawing closer to completion. So next up, it's time for that arduous task of all Chaos Space Marine models, that gold trim. So yeah, let's get this started. So as usual, color is Retributor armor, and as usual, just take your time with this step. Work with your smallest brush if you can. Don't worry about getting too much on the panels. We are going to tidy those up before we hit the wash stage, but just try to be neat around the areas you finished, like the flesh, the silver metals. My Retributor armor seems to be going past its best. So once we've got the paint all prepared on our palette, we'll load up our small brush and we'll bring in the Helbrute. So we'll start with Chaos Eye here in the center. Then trim all the way around the edge here. these ends of the pipe. Then we've got the panels edging. On the hammer, we're going to do this plate at the back here, the skull face, and of course that trim there as well. Just use the edge of your brush if you can, like I'm doing. That way you'll save making too much of a spill. We got his face to do. Just pick out the entirety of the face at this stage. I'll tidy up later on. We got all the gold around the horns to do. Just being careful around that finished flesh on the inside. So just continue to work your way around the model until you're finished. And again, you'll want 2 coats of this over the black. And with all that gold now painted, Helbrute is closer to completion. So with some fresh water, we can move on to the last 2 colours we need to paint, as we've already done the rack of flesh. So first up is Reefbone. This is going to be for all the horns and teeth around the model, and there are quite a few, so just take your time, pay close attention to the gallery, and you should be okay. So we'll prepare some of this on our palette with our small layer brush, as we want to control. And of course fresh water is required, as we've just finished with the metallics. So first areas to do, we've got the ribs on the horns here. We've got teeth all the way around here, including on the gums. We've got 2 horns just here as well, growing out from the metal. We've got the horn coming out of the leg armour, as well as a few teeth around the plates. And we've got the teeth around the plasma cannon as well to pick out. Just take your time. You may need a couple of coats, but going over the pink, it shouldn't be too bad. And as I said, take your time and you'll be done before you know it. So there we go, all the bone details done, including the spine and all the different teeth around the model. I have put these feet on the incorrect side. The paint guide shows 3 toes on this side and 2 toes on that side. That's my fault. That's how I constructed the model. but it don't really matter which side goes where, they both fit in just about the same. But moving on to our next colour, it's Mephisto Red, and this is for all the eyes. And we got the eyes of the pilot, the one on the chest, and the demonic ones on the left hand side of the armour. So get some of this ready on our palette. Make sure we've got a nice thin point to our brush. And if you need to, hold your breath. Then we just got to paint in the eyes. So we've got the two that are hanging down, and we've got the three that are part of the armour. So with that done, we're now ready to go a quick tidy up. So I've got my Abaddon Black at hand, so I'll just have to do that, and I'll be back with the wash stage. Tidy up stage took longer than anticipated. I pretty much had to go back to nearly every colour, including metals on some areas, and the flesh too. But now we are ready for the shade stage, and our first shade is Nuln Oil, good old trusty Nuln Oil. And this is going to be to shade down all of the metallic details, so mostly the silver metallics. So all the pipes, joints, the hammer, any breaks in the fleshy cables, the exhaust ports on these back as well. We're all going to paint with this, so we'll start picking out these silver details. And if you've got the chains up on the top here, pick them out. Got our exhausts back here. Just take your time working your way around the model. Until you're done. With our Nuln Oil now dry, we're ready to move on to our next colour. And we're using Agrat's Earthshade, and this is for the fleshy cables and all the bones, horns and teeth. So just like before, we'll get a puddle on our palette so we can draw up from. Give a brush of wash so we're not overloaded. And start applying this to our model. So we've got the horns here, teeth all around the model. Cables in behind here. And then we got this big old spine. And again, all the various cables around the model, as well as any horns, claws, teeth, anything that's growing out. So the Agrax Earthshade drying. We've now shaded a good deal of the model and 2 colours left to go. The first off is Royal Flesh Shade. This is going to be for all that gold trim. So this is going to be another take your time to get everything, especially going around areas you've completed. But don't worry too much about getting it on the black armour, it's not going to be very noticeable. So, on to our Helbrute then. We'll start off down here on this leg where we've got a nice big Chaos Skull, as well as the trim on the shin guard. Then we got the gold detail on the hammer to get as well. And with our Royal Flesh Shade now mostly dry, we got one last colour to do, and that's to paint this demonic flesh with Carrotburg Crimson. So the paint guide says to be careful around the piping and stuff, which you might want to do, but I think it actually kind of ties it all together more, makes it look like it's fusing with the machine underneath. But just take your time, apply the shade to all the fleshy areas, adding a little more definition to it. Keep applying this until you're finished, and I will see you back at the magazine. So here we are then. Helbrute has fully dried now, and he's looking pretty ferocious. Must admit, really does look quite good. Get as close as I can with him without blurring. Yeah. All in all, he's starting to look pretty good. So I have just today received my latest delivery, and I'm putting my money on the Coelia Green Shade issue to possibly be doing Plasma. Corax White followed by Coelia Green Shade. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah. Well, that is it for this video. I hope you found the paint guide useful. I'm really not liking the way these paint guides work. It's not how I prefer to do things as a painter. I'm more one for an all-over unifying shade if I possibly can. If I have got to do multiple shades, I like to do everything that shares one shade first, then jump to the next shade, all as corresponding colours. But yeah, that's pretty much my money for it. I'm going to stick to it for the run of the magazine at least, get all these models painted up as the guides dictate. Really? I've been away a few hours charging my phone. I've got a cobweb on this guy? Okay. Right. Anyway, that's enough from me. Thank you all very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time on more Combat Patrol Carnage as we look at the issue's lore pages. Goodbye.